joining today. So if you have any questions as we go through this webinar, please just type them into that questions box on your screen and we'll be sure to get those answered at the end. With that being said, I'll kick it over to Alex Burns, who is the Vice President of P3 Propane Safety.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. We appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to take a look at one of the kind of newer components of P3 and hopefully learn a little bit about how it can help you with your organization, or if you're already utilizing it, maybe get a couple little extra details. So with that said, I think I'd like to give Bill Marshall, from Allied Propane, the opportunity to introduce himself. He's going to talk a little bit about just, Bill, if you could talk for a second about your, not only your experience, but also just Allied Propane, a little bit of history there. Allied Propane, an early adopter of P3. We've been working with these guys for a long time, so we're excited to have them here with us today. So with that, I'll hand it over to you for a second, Bill.
So yes, I've been with Allied for a little over 2 years now. I have a varied background from sales in different fields, and came to Allied as I guess a solutions instigator, because I come in and I'm an adopter of technology. I like the technology. I want to make sure that it's there. The people that we have working on our dock, we've got 5 people that work on our dock that take care of recertification, and this has become a great tool. It gets rid of a lot of paper that we have and that we've been tracking. Allied's been in business since 1967 in the Bay Area. We've got 3 locations, and primarily there's a lot of work that's done in our Richmond location, which is where I am. This year alone, so far, we've already done over 1,000 recertifications using the system. And last year in 2025, we started in May and we did over 1,600 recertifications in the year. But this just gives us the method to be able to go back in, see what's there, be able to track what's there, as well as looking back if there's a client that's got a concern or a question or may have lost their label. We've got a method to find it pretty quickly with the number that we're doing.
Yeah, great, wonderful. So I think with that, maybe what we'll, I guess too, maybe before we jump in, because what we wanted to kind of run through today was not only just very briefly the mobile entry, but also just some of the kind of what Bill just alluded to, the sort of, ability to look things up quickly, I guess. Is that, I mean, which sort of leads me, I guess, Bill, to be, what were you guys doing? How was your process changed? You kind of talked a little bit about how you're usually using P3, but what were you guys doing before you started using this solution?
We had a sheet of paper that was a form that had a list of, I think it was 25 lines on it, and you would write all the information from the tank. You put that down, and then you date it, and if there was multiples for the day, you'd put the number of sheets per day that you did, and then that's been filed. So we have all of those sheets that are filed because we have to retain those for the number of years based on what's there, so the 5-year period. And those end up getting filed. They get put into a box, and if we need to go and pull them out and find out when something was recertified, we're able to do that by reference on what the date is too. But if a client came back in and said, I got this recertified, but the sticker came off, or I peeled it off, or somebody removed it, we had no way of doing that without going and scanning through a whole lot of paper. So
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Great. So I think with that, maybe what I'll do is kind of move over and we can kind of just take a brief look at how, what this looks like actually in P3. So when you're talking about, Bill, you've got your 5 employees that are there on the dock, who are typically the ones who are going to be doing an inspection like this. This is what, for those that aren't familiar with P3, this is what those folks are logging into. So this is our mobile application. This is what they'd see when they come in. So right into the dashboard here, you're going to click on your DOT cylinder inspections. We're working on DOT recertification as opposed to the 5-year on-site visual. So we'll move right into that. So this is depending on your company setup. If you have more than one RIN number that you requalify cylinders under, you can store all of those RIN numbers within P3. So if you only have one, it's fine. You're never going to have to interface with this here. But if you have multiples, you can always just select whichever RIN number you are taking care of these particular recertifications under. But if you only had one, it would just automatically move right past this question. And then from here, we really just try to keep it as simple as possible so that somebody who's in an area with a million things going on can just get right in and do what they need to do. Just really entering, kind of all this, just sort of the real basic information about the container itself. So we'll just, and then here with the actual dimensions, what we've done, so depending on the size of the container that you select, we've put in some very common actual dimensions for the particular container sizes. There are other actual dimensions out there other than what we have here. So we also give you the opportunity to add a new size if the actual dimensions of the container you're inspecting aren't here in the dropdown, but we just try to give some really common sizes here. The other thing that we do here is this owned by field. So if you are in a situation where you're sometimes going through a requalification process for a customer, and not just your company, if you do select customer, it gives you the ability to enter the customer's first and last name, so it can be tracked that way as well. And then really this is where we get into the bulk of the inspection. So I don't know, just Bill, just in terms of kind of your business and the types of stuff that you have flowing in, what kind of things are you, how are these containers getting to you guys to even be inspected, I guess? Where are they coming from?
We collect containers. We run an exchange program, not here at our location, but with our clients. So they'll be doing exchange at a gas station. They'll do exchange. We do restaurant supply. So we'll be out at restaurants where they've got patio heaters or what they may be using them for. And then we do a large portion of our business with forklift cylinders as well. So we're doing an exchange service with our clients for forklift cylinders. So we're collecting those on a daily basis. They come back in, and then each driver evaluates whether or not something needs to get refurbished or if it needs to get recertified, and then that comes off their truck and a new cylinder or replacement cylinder goes on. So we do collect from local resources that they're doing hazardous waste removal, and they come across propane tanks, or if they're working with collections facilities that are cleaning up a site that may have been abandoned and they come up with them, they'll give us a call, because that way we can recycle them correctly, or we can recondition them and refurbish them and put them back out into the field. But yeah, I mean, the questions that are being asked, I mean, while they're items and columns on the spreadsheet and the piece of paper that I talked about before, what this does is it's requiring that answer. So we're actually knowing that we're looking at everything that's supposed to be on there. It's just not a quick yes, 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 and you put a check mark all the way through. You have to go through and click through it. And we use a tablet to take care of the recertifications, and it works extremely well. It's not a very cumbersome process. It actually gets them to look at that and evaluate it, and using gauges and scales on dents and cracks and what's there, and whether or not the foot ring is intact, or what needs to be checked from a leak check perspective or replaced. We can get that corrected pretty quickly, knowing what we need to do.
Great, wonderful. And then sort of to Bill's point here, just this walks you right through all of these, kind of the basic questions. I think anybody who's ever done any one of these on paper, I think we can all visualize exactly what that paper looks like that Bill's talking about, with all the check marks all the way across. So this is basically that. So this is, in this case, we're going to kind of run along and just say that everything's looking okay, and we're going to be able to return this particular cylinder to service. And then all the way, those folks out there that are used to using P3 already know this, but one of the things that we always do throughout P3 is what we call P3's mobile professor. So at any point where you see a little question mark in the corner, you can always click on that and get a full description of exactly what is the intent of that particular question. That what exactly am I answering here? So this is telling you that by answering okay on this particular question, the cylinder has passed the inspection and is requalified for another 5-year period. So it's just without question this is the question that is kind of determining that. So you can find that throughout P3. And then at the end here, you just kind of want to finally say, did you apply a new requal date? Yes or no? In this case, we're going to say yes. And then from there, really in the mobile application, it's just, we try to keep it so that you could just move from if you got a stack of containers in front of you, whatever the situation is, you're just moving right through it. You don't even have to go back out to the dashboard again, go in again, re-enter. You don't have to do any of that. It's just try to move you right through as quickly as possible. You're on to the next cylinder. In this case, we won't enter another cylinder, but we just try to reduce the number of clicks for those folks working on Bill's dock that are going to have fewer and fewer things that they need to worry about. So we just try to streamline that as much as possible. So I'm going to say no there. And then what we'll do is we'll follow this from here. That's how we had the information in mobile. And now we're going to follow it over to P3 desktop and see what that looks like and see how you can get that information quickly. So this is just a test database that we have. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the activity report. I'm just going to show you all the inspections that you've got going. But in this particular case, we're going to go right to the DOT certification, which it looks like in the last 30 days. In this particular example, we've done 12. So you'll be able to get a quick snapshot overall of all the containers that have been inspected and on which date and by which inspector. And then from there, you can just export, and then we'll open this up and take a look. And I'll probably have to pull this over here. Okay. All right. So now this is, again, kind of what we spoke about before, that that paper, that kind of horizontal paper with all the lines and all the serial numbers. This is just basically an electronic version of that. So you can just very quickly see which RIN number it was requalled under, what the date was, who the technician was, serial number, size, all the basic information that we just entered. If it's homeowner owned or business owned, however you want to do that, you can enter that information. Was also part of the inspection if you selected that. So you can see here very quickly. I think also the other thing that's good in the inspection that we just completed, everything was okay. We returned it to service. But you can see pretty quickly, you can sort by if you had any sort of scrapped or condemned cylinders. That would be very apparent from looking at this report. You can sort by all of that information, so you can quickly get in there, understand exactly what's going on. And to Bill's point earlier, if you ever did have a serial number that you needed to look up for whatever reason because there was a question or an issue or anything, you can dial right into that information very quickly without having to go access a file cabinet. So I don't know, reporting wise, Bill, if there's anything from your perspective here on this, if again, you've been able to utilize this or needed to utilize this or anything worth talking about there.
No, I mean, I started collecting reports. Initially, I was doing them monthly, and I shifted to an annual report just so that we could have a preloaded and downloaded electronic copy so we could search it easier. Just because if we need to be able to look something up, we want to be able to do that. And I just created a reference point to do that. So we do it on an annual basis. About every month or so, I do go in and I download the current year, and I just keep adding to that. I just resave the file into that. But it's just so that I can go in and look it up without having to go log in. It's a reference point that I can get to even if I'm out in the field. I'm able to access that through cloud storage systems.
Yep, great. All right, wonderful. That sounds great. So we just, again, this is one of those things that we understand a lot of times there's high volume in an area where there's a lot of things going on. And so we just have really worked since the beginning of making this available to try to make it as efficient as possible and easy to use and very quick to access the information. So that's been one of the main goals of this particular this inspection particularly, I would say. So I guess with that, I don't know if maybe we could just see if Emma, I know at the beginning you let everybody know that if they had any questions, they could pop those into the chat there. I don't know if there have been any questions that have come up at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, great. Well, you know, if there, you know, when everything's said and done here, if anybody does think of any questions or, you know, need anything after, please, you know, please let us know. We're happy to answer questions at any time. So I don't know, is there anything, just in closing, Bill, anything else that you think would be relevant to talk about before we jump off?
I mean, no, the only thing that I have is, I mean, you know, from going through it, from using it versus paper versus this, I mean, yeah, paper ends up, you know, it's on a loading dock for us. You know, when it's wet, when it's raining, this doesn't get destroyed. The paper ends up getting, you know, a little bit flimsy at times if the wind is really kicking up out there. And the other thing is that, you know, people do, once you become comfortable with it, and I know you said I've got 5 people that work on the dock here. They've all become very comfortable with it. They can move through it just about as quickly as going through a piece of paper. They know what to expect. They know what's there. They know what they're looking for to begin with. So they know the ones that aren't going to pass just by, you know, sort of glancing at them, so that they can move those off to the side to go into the decommission side of it, so that we can just be turning around and getting the cylinders that need to get back out into rotation out there.
Yeah. Great. That's wonderful. All right, great. Well, I think then we can probably call it good. And thank you everybody for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon. And Bill, thank you too for taking the time and coming to kind of talk about your own personal experience. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.